Fiji might have lost their opening match, but in this episode, we're going to break down how far they can go in the Rugby World Cup. I'm with Johnnie Beattie. Welcome to Beyond 80. Johnny, Wales and Fiji always create great matches. Why is that?
I don't know, but I've got great memories of watching during the 2007 World Cup. Probably my favourite game was that tie in Nantes. Shane Williams, some fantastic Fijian wingers, but I don't know, it was a case of the space. That was a dry day. The game watched the weekend, it was poorer conditions, harder to control, but epic bits of rugby, epic running rugby, offloads, and really entertaining to watch. So 2007, now 2023, two wonderful clashes between those nations.
In 2007, Wales basically tried to play Fiji at their own game.
Yeah, madness. Yeah, something that you don't try to do. Against Fiji, you want to bring that structure, squeeze the life out of them, scrum them, maul them. But I think, unfortunately, for everyone else now trying to play that way, Fiji also have that in their game. They've shown at Twickenham and again now against Wales, they're very competent up front. They've got some tremendous firepower. Scrum, maul, a line-out operates at a high level. They offer themselves a foothold in the game and they know how to defend the other side of the ball in those tight phases as well. So those are the ways that you try previously, but I think we've all seen now that Fiji are a different proposition and they are top class rugby nation.
Maybe for people who haven't had the pleasure of watching Fiji over the years, what do they bring? What are their main threats?
Their super strengths, speed, agility, quickness, the offload and the passing game, all of those elements to Fijian players and Pacific Island players seem absolutely effortless.
Well, they carried for over 1,000 metres on Sunday. They had 12 22 entries. And if we look at this first example, you can see just the power and the skill that they bring. So this is from a scrum inside the Fijian half. But what Fiji do really well here is that they put a winger on the far side, and that holds Josh Adams in place. So essentially, Josh Adams ends up marking no one. But what it means is that on the near side, we've got Louis Lee Samet. And his job, Johnny, is that if they pass, he's going to push up, and if they kick, he's going to drop back.
Yeah, he just has to stay slightly tucked. But the pressure that brings, with a simple mispass in this instance as well, is it brings one of the best strike runners in the game and in the top 14, Vazea, right into the game. And it might look simplistic, but that mispass straight away gives Vazea an option of a 3-on-1. Essentially, he's got that soft shoulder on George North. He can tuck, he can go, but he can also bring those two players outside him into the game, which is a very delicate position to be in as a backline.
And if we just go back to that formation at the start, you can see that the three Welsh players there, we got Dan Biggar, we got Tom Kings, we got George North, incredibly tight compared to how the Fijians are lining up. We can see 4 Fijians in play there, there's a 5th just out of shot on the near side, but incredibly tight compared to Fiji. Why are they doing that?
Because they don't want to be broken through the midfield simply, so they're staying tight instinctively so they can come up, press and push out and work together. They can cover each other's inside shoulders. You can work as a chain of 3 effectively, as opposed to working in isolation or being more spread and inviting Fijians to step and take your inside shoulder. However, we see exactly what they don't want. You see Vazea taking the ball to the gain line. He could go on the outside, but he steps completely. And the ability then, as we talked about, to beat a man with the agility, to then keep the ball live, that comes down to the individual talent that Fiji possess. Occasion, again, the ability just to dominate a collision, get the hands free and offload. So Fiji with 2 offloads, as we said, that's their super strength. They break Wales and they create what is one of the tries of the first weekend of the Rugby World Cup.
And as a back row player yourself, how impressive is it to see the flanker getting on the end of that Nandrangja pass to go in for the try?
Yeah, really impressive. But again, these are the types of lines as a flanker, especially in the open side, you're taught to anticipate. And you can see he actually starts out fairly lateral, but as soon as Vazea makes that initial burst, the acceleration, the second effort to get on the end of the offload from Radradra as he draws in 3 defenders is exceptional. And then he's also got the pace to finish. Not all open sides have it, but there you go, an exceptional finish and a team try from the Fijians.
Here we're looking at a Fijian attack where they've got 8 attackers and then 6 defenders. So we say there's a 2-man overlap there. Almost immediately, we see that first pass and it takes out 2 Welsh defenders.
Wales have to stay straight and be honest, they're quite tight for that first collision, but the impact again is a positive one and Fiji get on the front foot. Then the second part of their shape is even more interesting. They get quick ball around the corner and it's another collision that's been dominated hands freed again, and the offload to Vizea is superb.
There's so many different players that Fiji could pass to here. So essentially what you're saying there in the structure, there's just having options where you can pass the ball that confuses the defence.
There are 1-2 options across the front of 10, there's the option out the back or an option inside. So there's multi-option, whereas previously it would maybe be a flat line, they'd be shoveling onto each other and just saying, do something exceptional, which they still can do, and it's still hard to defend, but now it's a different gear, different level to play against.
And as a defender, if you know who's getting the ball, it's just about being brave and your tackle technique. But if you're not sure who's getting the ball, suddenly there's an extra element there that just makes it so much harder.
That's it. And I think previously teams with this type of multi-phase play, defensively be able to get your line speed right, you'd get a double hit or a double collision and you'd be able to knock them behind the gain line. Whereas because Fiji are able to accelerate into this play, even though it's a good initial collision, it's a one-person collision, so nobody can slow the ball down. They swing round the corner, and again, it's at pace. George North clutching at straws, difficult position to defend at 13, and he's just left a little bit isolated again. But that, with the individual quality, when you're left defending one-on-one against Fijian players in wide channels, it's absolutely horrific. It doesn't matter who you are, they're horrendous to defend against.
Of course, this ended with the turnover, Dan Biggar kicking back, the 50-22, which then ended with Wales's line out, which then ended with a yellow card, which then ended with the try. So ultimately, as good as that Fijian attack is, they had 16 turnovers conceded on Sunday, 7 of those in the 22. That's their downfall, isn't it?
It is their downfall. And look, this instance, they concede the 50-22, they go further behind, and they still work their way into that game. They still manage to find a way through keeping ball in hand, by being exciting to watch, by big carries, of really squeezing Wales.
On that point, that last 15 minutes, or I guess the last 12 minutes after the Domachowski yellow card, was all Fiji. They had no penalties conceded, Wales had 7. Fiji had 96% possession in the last 10 minutes. They had 51 carries to Wales's 2 in the last 15 minutes. That's the Fiji that we want to see for 80 minutes, isn't it?
It's the golden ticket, isn't it? How do you get an 80-minute performance? Scotland was the same against South Africa, patches, Wales and Fiji, it's the exact same thing. Each game during this World Cup is going to ebb and flow, but Fiji know if they back themselves, if they retain possession, they're careful with the ball after get through that collision. With Fijian players, Pacific Island players, the excitement that comes from holding the ball, dominating collisions, offloading, or conversely, defensively teeing off on you and creating chaos with their D as well. Once morale goes up, they are just so difficult to contain. I think the sort of cliche of not fit or it's gone. These guys are highly professional, organised, skilled rugby players that have been given a fair shot. They get 3 months prep together, they're ready to go, they've got structure. And the depth that maybe they didn't have because the best players were kept at club, they're all now there. You're getting to see the pinnacle of Fijian rugby at Rugby World Cup.
Well, we've talked largely positively about what Fiji bring, but we should touch on some of the negatives as well. So they do need to improve their defence. In 6 of the last 7 games against Tier 1 nations, they've conceded 30 points or more, as they did on Sunday as well. This is a break for George North, and if we play it off the top of the line out there, we can see that, first of all, Fiji don't come up in this tight line, so we might expect them to come up as one solid line, but then instead we can see Landrandra's just dangling slightly off the back of that defensive line. Why does that matter?
You can see that there's then a dogleg. These open up opportunities for a secondary pass, or they open up boulevards for players to run into. So when you have multi-option, it's easy to take the ball to the gain line and just drop that off your shoulder into a massive chasm for George North. It's a simple fix for Fiji though. You just have to communicate time and come up together.
So George North makes a break and then gives it to Gareth Davis. But Fiji must be quite disappointed there that they then concede after just 2 phases.
You'll be delighted with the initial effort, the fact that they're busting a gut, trying to get back on side to defend the next wave. Once your players are caught short side, Tompkins a hit up, and then the amount of red jerseys, the options they have, the ball comes wide to Biggar, and he's essentially got a 5-on-3 to choose on, pick off his options. And Wales, to be fair, take it to the gain line, and they pick off Josh Adams out wide, who finishes extremely well. So
in this next clip, we're going to use Live Tag Pro to show another Fijian weakness here. First of all, a beautiful bit of skill from Tompkins, but another Fijian defensive error.
A defensive error, but it's very nicely worked by Wales. This is one of the most simplistic backline moves that we see put in place time and time again. You have Dan Biggar sat out the back, George North coming and hitting that short line, and you can just see Radradra bites in on Tompkins. The work of Biggar to bounce out attracts Vizea, who turns his shoulders, he's looking to bounce out, and George North hits that short line and hits the hole. I mean, we can say Fijian weakness, but it's a nice bit of play, again, by the Welsh boys, executed really well and stressing that Fijian defensive line.
We can see a great example there of what Bigger does, as you say, he doesn't touch the ball, but by running that line out the back, we might call it a soft line, where he's running towards the sideline. George North runs the hard line towards the try line, and that just creates almost an X shape. And by Bigger going out the back, it just, as you say, it just draws those Fijian defenders out towards him.
That's it. It's just one of those nice pieces of work off the ball. He won't get the praise because he's not the try scorer, but he's created that space for George North to find that hole. He's the one that's brought Vizea out of line and created the space for his teammate.
To escape the pool, they're probably going to have to beat Australia. What did you think of Australia on Saturday?
I thought it was as good as I've seen them. It's their first win, obviously, since November 2022. Big sigh of relief for the players. Big Will Skelton, Eddie Jones coming as coach. So it's a shot in the arm. They'll be much more confident now after winning that first game. But there's still little parts of that game that were slightly loose that you think potentially Fijians, loose kicks, they could run back and cause them some real difficulty as well.
Well, we saw that in this example here. So we've got Nick White at scrum half. And this is an unusual tactic, but one we're seeing quite a lot of this World Cup, these box kicks so close to the opposition 22.
It wasn't just box kicks either. For Nangatawasi, who on the right wing looks like a bit of a revelation in this competition already, they went crossfield, they went high, there were Gary Owens, all sorts of kicking combinations to his wing. You had Michael Hooper came out and said that he's the closest thing he's seen to Israel Folau. So they're looking to get to his wing, aerial contest and cause havoc that way. But this is just one instance where their kicking game, Nick White, a little bit loose, not like him at all. And it just shows with Niniashvili, the sort of X factor that Fiji have. If there's a little bit of looseness to their kicking game, the counter-attack, they could cause some real issues for the Wallabies as well.
Well, it actually looked quite a lot like Fiji here, not just the white jerseys, but lunging at space, lunging at those soft inside shoulders. It was very impressive by Georgia. It
was very impressive, and David Niniashvili, another guy who lights up the top 14 with Leon, and that was the difference in the game. You thought if Georgia with that line break worked their way back in and scored that next point, the game was on. But that killed it. On 55 minutes, that was the try that changed completely the complexion of the game, and Australia were outside.
Fiji will play quite differently to Georgia. Do you think that Australia have learned anything from this match that they can take into next week?
If you're Australia, they've been very impressive at set piece. Their scrum, again, against the Georgians was dominant. They were dominant also against France in their last warm-up game. You'd be looking for them to exert pressure there. They also looked to their maul with Richie Arnold, Will Skelton, very impressive. But I think against Fiji, it will be the same case for the Wallabies. They look to control possession, exert their game plan. And again, they kicked very well against Georgia. They want to peg Fiji back into their territory and force them to run from deep. You then have to defend against Fijians running from deep, which isn't easy, but they'd rather do that than have Fijians running at them in their third or in their red zone. If the game's played in the right area for the Wallabies, they'd back themselves that their kicking game would be superior. If you're forcing the Genes to come out of their 22, out of their third, with a strong kicking game, you could maybe get on top.
So if Australia kick that loosely against Fiji, that's going to be an opportunity that Fiji are going to try and exploit.
Of course, that's where they're extremely dangerous as well. Coming out backfield, loose kicks, space in front, fragmented defences, that is where the Fijian game lights up, and I think that's what we all want to see, and that's a big opportunity. If the Wallabies are loose with their kicking game, they could be absolutely crucified by the Fijians.
So we've gone through where Fiji is strong, but do you, Johnny, do you think they can beat Australia, and do you think they can get out of the group?
100%. This is the best Fijian side that I've ever watched. It's been a real pleasure to play with lots of Fijian mates in the top 14. They are some of the best rugby players and athletes on the planet. They've already picked up those 2 points, which not many people are talking about, but that is a big boost of confidence as well. But absolutely, they have the fundamentals of their game, but also the X factor, the talent to really cause the Wallabies problems and win this next game.
They need a little bit of luck as well, don't they?
They potentially didn't get the rub of the green, especially last 15 minutes with the pressure they built. I thought Wales probably could have another man go to the bin. That would have helped them, but you make your own luck. I think they'll take in the positives from that game, 2 points, and they'll march on. They've got the structure, the players, and the power to go on and beat the other sides in this pool, so I'm looking forward to seeing, as I think everyone is, what they can achieve.
So if they do get out of the group, it's likely they're going to face potentially England, maybe Argentina, Japan, Samoa. Do those concern you if you were a Fijian supporter?
I think England will be looking forward to a rematch. I'm not going to lie. I think the England players, after their display against Argentina, they would look forward to that challenge. Argentina as well, different proposition. They were disappointing in their first hit out, but again, having a bunch of mates, Gus Creevy, that I've played with a long time, I know that they'll be a different proposition in the competition going forward. And if they get to the quarterfinals, they'll show a completely different face. So for Fiji, I'm absolutely sure that they have what it takes to get out of the pool. And then once you're in knockout rugby, it's a different level. It's a different step up. The set piece, the structure that we have seen they're capable of. Can they do it on the biggest stage in a quarterfinal of the World Cup? I think everyone would love to see it.
Let us know in the comments below how far you think Fiji can go. This has been Beyond 80. We'll be back next week.